So, people, today we are talking about a big problem that we all see every day. We wake up in the morning and we all grab a cup of coffee, we drink it, and we just throw away the coffee grounds in the trash. But have you ever taken a second thought, like what happens to it? And it's what we are going to talk today with Alejandra.
Yeah, so hello, that is correct. That is the exactly problem of my research topic, future. So things that we consume every day, like a cup of coffee, we only use between 1 and 1.5 of this resource, but that means that 90% of this is just going to waste. But in reality, this material contains a lot of macromolecules that can be used to produce textiles, for example, that can be to produce biofuels, that can be used to produce bio-oils.
When did you see the problem? And where did the idea spark?
Yeah, so I'm coming from Colombia. I knew that I wanted to build something that will connect my roots, my Colombian roots, my coffee roots, with engineering. Recycling technologies are just growing and growing and growing. The market is growing. There are two types of coffee seeds. One are called Arabica and the other ones are called Robusta. The Arabica coffee beans are the ones that have the potential to produce specialty coffee. Really something very important to mention when you want to be responsible consuming coffee is that there are some countries that produce coffee beans that have associations.
And the point when you said if it goes in a biogas digester, also I read that it's a lot of biogas digesting plants don't want coffee beans. It has in it, and that doesn't go well with methane production, so they don't want in a biogas plant also.
That's amazing. Every day I learn something new. That's really good to know.
Yeah.
I didn't know.
Let's say we walk in your lab, and what would we see?
The process was I collected the spent coffee grounds from the due diligence process. Also, with the coffee grounds have to be dry, and then I did pyrolysis.
Okay.
And then when you do pyrolysis of coffee grounds, still is not so optimal because you don't use the macromolecules, but it was the first experiment that I did. And then you can get either oil or carbon.
I think when I spoke to you for the first time, you mentioned you have an engineering background, and then you came to Umbel campus and you study SVT. Is that right? Okay. And then like what made you want to apply mechanical engineering and sustainable technology? Like what was the moment? Like what were you thinking then?
Well, okay. First, when I was living in Colombia, I always knew that I wanted to get to know another cultures. I wanted to learn a third language. I wanted to explore the world. I really wanted to expand my mind. I think when you travel and you live somewhere else, you get rid of biases. You understand another cultures, religions, ways of thinking, and that is what it makes being alive so special. And then when I saw this program in Umbel campus, Trade University, I just fell in love because it was a dual program. So we have the business side and the engineering side. So it really allowed me to get to know the engineering, how German engineers think, how German engineers do things, apply things, like scientific methods, like all these type of things that I knew from a Colombian perspective, but it was a large difference to know it from the German perspective.
All right. Welcome to the studio, Alejandra Hernandez. I hope I said it properly and pronounced it properly as well.
Yeah, really good.
So people, today we are talking about a big problem that we all see every day. We wake up in the morning and we all grab a cup of coffee, we drink it, and we just throw away the coffee grounds in the trash. But have we ever taken a second thought, like what happens to it and what are the environmental effects? So that's what we are going to talk today with Alejandra. Alejandra, you can start with like what you do and what was your project and why you chose. The floor is for you. Please go ahead.
Yeah, so hello, that is correct. That is the exactly problem of my research topic. I started researching on this since 5 years, I believe, in Trade University. I started in all of these volunteer programs talking about circular economy that is also related with what I studied, sustainable business and technology. And yeah, problems, topics that solve current problems, right? And that will ensure that we will have a sustainable future. So things that we consume every day, like a cup of coffee, we only use between 1 and 1.5 of this resource. But that means that 90% of this is just going to waste. And that's something that in my research topic, I call that maca connecting. I've been working on, so taking a look into the macromolecules of this product, and then just figure out for what industries this can be used, to what industries this can be used, how we can make sure to upcycle, how is the perception in cities, because this is urban waste material. So what is the perception of specialty coffee shops? To at the end of the day, just contribute a little bit to circular economy plans here in the European Union.
Okay. And where did the idea come from that this is something, that's a huge problem? Where did you notice it? Or when did you see the problem? And where did the idea spark?
Yeah, so I'm coming from Colombia. Colombia is the largest specialty coffee producer in the world, and Germany is the largest Colombian importer of the country, of green beans of the country. So 8 years ago already, when I moved out of Colombia, I knew that I wanted to build something that will connect my roots, my Colombian roots, my coffee roots, with engineering. So that's how I landed out here in Germany. I've been always fascinated by the German engineering, quality, logistics, and so on. And this is how the idea. So I have a background in engineering.
Okay.
And then it was something that connects me with my roots and then with what I wanted to do in life. And actually the name here, Maca. So the name Maca, it means connect, roots in Arahuaco. Arahuaco is an indigenous community that was across all Latin America.
Okay.
And it means roots. So it's like connecting German engineering excellence to my root. That's how the name of my company was born. And then on campus in the university, I wrote my thesis about this topic, upcycling of coffee grounds. I was exploring pyrolysis, so green carbon production, distillation processes. I got into a lot of chemistry with Asma, a very good friend of mine. This is how the idea has been developed for the last 5 years.
5 years. Yeah. Okay. So it's been an ongoing project for the last 5 years. Okay.
Yeah, I call this my life project, actually.
Oh, wow.
I love to visit specialty coffee shops. I've been very connected to this market in Scandinavia, in Frankfurt, now here in Munich, where I'm living. And I believe that is also the reason why I find so much fascination about this is because the topic in general is very sensorial. So when
Sensorial?
yeah,
like when you make a coffee, you smell like this, you mean? Or
so from the beginning of the production, when you are in the farm, how the green beans get the notes, right? How much people and farmers that have to take care about the biodiversity, the water resources to get a good quality of coffee, specialty coffee. Then in the transportation, right, the levels of humidity. Then when you are roasting the coffee, it's also another science. It's like a thermodynamic course.
Yep.
I also do roasting. I did learn how to properly roast beans. So when you roast, is also you have to smell a lot. You have to see there are many qualitative qualities when you do this. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
that are very nice to interact with. And then of course the drinking of the coffee, the tasting, and then the upcycling, right? So then you get into all the chemistry.
And the end, crazy. Oh, it's so interesting that where in Colombia, did your parents have farms or did you have any connections with farming background or do you have anything in that direction?
Not really directly when I was growing up, but Colombia is a coffee country. It's part of our control. So a part of our economy or of GDP is driven by exports of green and roasted coffee beans. So it's a very important part of
Colombian
for our economy. Yeah. And also, actually, something that I also have in connection here with Germany is that the first time when I moved out from Colombia, I went to the US. I lived there for a couple of months. And I couldn't help myself to notice that everyone was relating my country with Pablo Escobar. But we are not Pablo Escobar. We don't even consume so many drugs in Colombia, And when I came to Germany, this is we are not very proud of this part of our history. And I think that me living here in Germany is kind of also a responsibility part from me to show the people what we really are, what we really can do. Exactly, the better side of my culture and not only a very dark part of our history. And I think we share also that with with Germany. So it has been an
Okay.
amazing place to be to develop
That's
this project.
that's a very nice motivation and spirit to show, your country in a better way than what the rest of the world portrays it as. That's very nice of you. So, what is the problem? Like, why can I not just dispose the coffee in the trash? Like, what happens?
So as I said before, when we consume 1 cup of coffee, we use up to 2% of the
Uh-huh.
value of this material. But in reality, this material contains a lot of macromolecules that can be used to produce textiles, for example, that can be to produce biofuels, that can be used to produce bio oils. There are so many applications that haven't been really explored until today. And it really makes sense to think about it because it's a resource that is largely consumed in Europe and everywhere in the world.
Isn't it
I
like
believe
2.1 billion cups a day are, made a
exactly
day? Yeah, that's huge. And
is disposed, and you can be producing sport clothes. I have sport clothes from a company that has been upcycling this. You
really,
can. Yeah, I also, for example, for my face and
okay,
my treatments, I use coffee oil every day. That's
okay,
really good for circulation, anti-aging properties. For
okay,
pharmaceutical industry, there is also a lot of research and applications. Yeah, it's like you, and also it's a product that is produced locally, right? It's a very localized waste stream in every city
all right,
in the world.
yeah,
So you don't need to import, you don't need to produce emissions in transportations, which means 70% of emissions when you are producing a product. Um, yeah, you can contribute to the local economy, right?
right. You're adding value to the chain of the product as well, like rather than it
Exactly,
ending
very
up.
well said. Yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
and when it ends up in a landfill, it also causes methane, right? So that's another big problem that we are trying to tackle with what you want to do, right? So do you know
Yeah,
what?
exactly.
Do you know the technical, like how much methane is produced when it ends up in a landfill? Like some
I have
numbers?
it somewhere in my notes in my research,
Okay,
but at this moment I
okay,
don't have the exact number.
okay.
But the problem of spent coffee grounds when they so if they ended up in a bio waste,
Mm-hmm.
upcycling, uh, urban waste
Yeah.
processing, that's okay because, for example, you can also spent coffee grounds are really good as a fertilizer for the plants and
Mm-hmm.
so on. But in Germany, I think less than 30% of the bio waste is collected. So
Okay.
otherwise, this product ends up in landfills mostly,
Mm-hmm.
maybe sometimes in incineration
Mm-hmm.
places. So that part of the material can be also used. But when you look at the value of how you can use it before putting in an incineration plant is way larger, mostly
Okay.
maybe up to 90%, because the type of things that you can extract from coffee grounds, you can sell them to textiles, to cosmetics, to pharmaceuticals, and then the price per kilogram is larger
Okay.
than when you
Okay.
put it in an incineration stream
Okay.
and also as a fertilizer. So
And they
yeah.
also make cups, coffee bean ground up cups, I believe.
Yeah,
Also, yeah,
in
I
Berlin there
read.
is a big startup. Uh, so polymers, you can
Yeah.
also produce polymer bioplastics. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Right. Hmm. And the point when you said if it goes in a biogas digester, also, I read that it's a lot of biogas digesting plants don't want coffee beans because it has something in it. I forget what it is. If I look at my notes, it says it has a compound.
Perhaps heavy metals.
No, it has pyridine in it, and that
Ah,
doesn't go well with methane production. So they don't want it
ah,
in a biogas plant also.
that's
So
amazing. Every day I learn something new. That's really good to know.
yeah,
I didn't know. Which
yeah,
one is the name?
pyridine.
Paradine. Ah, okay. I
Yeah,
will definitely take a look on it. I didn't know that. I
yeah,
will
yeah.
include it in my presentation
Do it. Yes, and
slides.
that's why you should. Yeah, and they don't want it in an anaerobic digestion because it
Ah,
affects with the amount of biogas it produces, and that's why it's diverted to either to make compost out of it or something
yeah.
else. So yeah, but
Ah,
if
okay.
you go to fertilizer or composting, I believe it's not making use of the potential in it. So Yeah.
Exactly. And also, it's not just about using the material, but having a refinery, right?
Mm-hmm.
For
Yeah.
example, of upcycling of coffee grounds is also economic impact that that could have in a
Yeah.
city or in a country, because it's all the technology around the machinery that you have to buy, all the people you have to hire. Is also is an economic asset, I believe. Yeah, it's an economic asset from the import perspective, from the roasting perspective, but also from the upcycling
Employment
perspective.
perspective also. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
So what is the technique like? Well, let's say you get the spent coffee grounds. What do you do afterwards? Let's say we walk in your lab, and what would we see?
Yeah, actually, now that you mention, I had
Yeah.
access in Umbel campus in
Okay.
Birkenfeld, access to a laboratory. So there I did my thesis on it. It was my thesis topic. And the process was I collected the spent coffee grounds from the coffee machines on campus. So
Okay.
first I did some due diligence process also with the purchasing department, and I did identify where spent coffee grounds were produced, right? In the offices, in the cafeteria, and so
Okay.
on. Then I was bringing them to the laboratory. The spent coffee grounds have to be dry. The drying process is for yield optimization.
Okay.
Then once the spent coffee grounds are dry, 6%, between 6 and 8%,
The moisture
uh,
content, you
the
mean?
moisture content. Yeah, you have to
Okay.
measure the moisture content with a
Mm-hmm.
machine.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was just exploring, like playing. It was very
Okay.
fun. I worked
Okay.
there. 3 companies were working there. So
Okay.
campus, another company was upcycling polymers, and then another company that was producing energy with
Okay.
pyrolysis processes.
Oh, cool.
And it
Wow.
was a very interesting. I think all of this is all about the access of networking that you also have, because it's very multidisciplinary.
Yeah.
So when we were working all together, they teach me a lot about which type of tests I need to do to
Okay.
verify. So which processes did I apply? So coffee grounds, they are dry,
Mm-hmm.
and then I did pyrolysis.
Okay.
And then when you do pyrolysis of coffee grounds, still is not so optimal because you don't use the macromolecules, but it was the first experiment that I did. And there you can get either oil or
Mm-hmm.
carbon black or activated carbon.
Okay.
You use these materials for in industry for painting metals, for
Mm.
do aleations and so
Yeah.
on.
Mm-hmm.
Then I also did distillation to extract oil from the spent coffee grounds.
Okay. So you use
Yeah.
a chemical method for extracting the oil. So it's
Yeah, with a distillation setup. Hmm.
okay. And could you explain what pyrolysis is? Like I don't think everybody watching here would know what that is.
Yeah, so pyrolysis is a method you can use it for any material to bring any element or no element, sorry, any material into the basic form of the material, that is
Oh, okay.
carbon. So the basic form of many, yeah,
Living organisms or whatever. Yeah.
exactly,
Yeah. It's
it's
carbon.
carbon.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then
Mm-hmm. Okay.
carbon, yeah, you can use it in for painting. Everything that you see in these microphones,
Really?
computers and so on, they use carbon black. Or if you produce activated carbon, you can also use it for
For water
purification
filtering. Yeah.
process, for
Mm-hmm.
water filtration
And they
and so
also
on.
use it for soil, what do you call it? Like
Enhancement, yeah.
enhancement, right?
Hmm.
Oh, okay. Oh,
Yeah.
crazy.
Actually, I want
Wow.
to take the carbon black that I obtained in the laboratory. I have a
Yeah.
farm in Colombia, and my
Okay.
plan is to just to see. I want to
Experiment.
plant, yeah, because I have to
Okay.
plant some trees, and I want to plant half left of the trees with the
Okay.
activated carbon that I extracted from the laboratory, and the right side without any, and then in 10 years see the difference. I don't know.
Oh, are you gonna write a paper on it?
Probably.
Please do. That will be interesting to see. That's a nice
Yeah.
experiment. Yeah. Okay.
But this
Wow.
topic was part of the research of the laboratory, by the way,
Okay.
with
So
Professor
it's
Bottlinger.
okay.
He
Okay.
was the first one who trusted on me. Like when I came to campus,
Uh-huh.
I knew that I wanted to do this,
Okay.
and I went to pitch many professors, and he was one of the ones who really supported me. He
What's
gave me
his name
access.
again? Give him a
Professor
shout out.
Bottlinger.
Okay, I'll check with them later on Humboldt
Yeah.
campus. Okay, cool.
Now he got his pension, so he's not anymore in on
Uh,
campus.
okay.
But I am deeply thankful to him because he gave me the access to the ovens, to the distillation setup, to the laboratory. He made the contacts to me with the companies that were working there. Um, yeah, with applications, like he was like my mentor,
Oh,
kind
that's
of.
very nice to have. Yeah.
Yeah, I
Wow.
was really happy to see how good acceptance this topic had in academia as well.
Okay. And
And
is it a
how
big topic? Is it? It's probably a huge topic, I believe.
I think in Germany it's like a niche, but upcycling technologies are just growing and growing and growing. The market is growing
Yeah,
very
we need
much for
it.
the last year. Yeah. So
Okay. So, like, is it just in Europe that you think this upcycling thing is happening, or are you up to date with the world affairs? And do you follow in Colombia how it is over there?
in Colombia, don't think so much because we don't have the technology and the amount of investments necessary for this, but it's getting better. I have to say it's getting better every year. And here in Germany, I think there are many opportunities if these type of topics are reframed in a way that really contributes to society or to the economy. Yeah,
Okay.
either in academia, on business, or industry.
Okay.
I think it has a lot of acceptance. Yeah. Mhm.
Okay. Cool. All right. I think we deviated too far away from your process from pyrolysis, and you were
Yeah.
mentioning about distilling the thing, and then yeah,
Yeah.
how does it
So
go on from there?
at the end, so distillation, you have a
Mm-hmm.
distillation setup, and then you have to use a solvent because
Okay.
many oils, like for example, the oils that are competing with coffee oil, so
Mm-hmm.
that's called premium oils, are
Okay.
like argan or jojoba oil.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Many of these you can press them, and then you get the oil.
Mm-hmm.
But with coffee, no, you have to, if you want to extract the lipids and so on, you need to use a solvent. So you need to use a distillation
Okay.
process.
So
So
distillation is a process where you put it in a certain solvent and you heat it up and it releases and then it evaporates and then it goes through a cooling tube and then condenses. Is that the whole
exactly,
process?
yeah.
Okay.
So we have a condensation column,
Mm-hmm.
and then we heated up the spent coffee grounds with the solvent,
Okay.
and then when you get the product at the end, you get oil, you get
Mm-hmm.
solvent, and then you get a mix of oil with solvent.
Okay.
So then you can then what we did, we applied a rectification process on top of
Okay.
the distillation, um, and then decantation. So by densities, you just
Uh,
divide. So you get most of the value of the process because a lot of material, coffee oil, it gets into the condensation column and in the flask and in the glasses that you use in the laboratory.
okay.
Yeah, and also from I also wrote a part on my thesis from the
Okay.
economics of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
More of the expensive materials that you use for this is the solvent. So you want
Okay.
to recover most of the solvent to put it back on the process. So
Okay.
it's like the process itself is also like a circular process.
Yeah. Rather
Yeah.
than letting it waste. But you do have efficiency problems. Some must evaporate and you must lose some solvent. Or do you get 100% recovery of the solvent every time?
No,
No.
no. There are losses in the glasses and
Okay.
in the evaporation. Not so much because we make sure that the temperature when in the condensation column is not higher than
Okay.
Xan, that it was the solvent that I did use. But yeah, there are definitely losses. So I think the play in what you have to optimize the process, right? You have
Okay. Yeah.
to design like a
Make it.
formulation,
Yeah.
and then you have to just check which solvent makes more sense, which one,
Okay.
how
So
much
it's
is
an
the temperature.
experimental stage as well. Yeah, I
Yeah,
saw your technical whatever the TSL or what do you call that? Your
TRL.
number TRL. Yeah, you were
Yeah.
number 3, right? So
Mm-hmm.
that means it's still in the beginning. You have a what do you call? You have the plan, you have the method how to do it, but the scalability is still like in the progress. Is that right?
Exactly. Also, when you think I have followed some companies that are doing this in Poland, there is a large refinery, and in Denmark also, Café Bueno, there is also a large refinery there. And yeah, it's not when you do something in the laboratory with involves chemical processes, it's not the same when you scale them up. When you scale them up, you have a lot of temperature losses, you have material losses, you have pressure, for example, is also important. So it's like as yeah, these companies when they scale
Yeah.
is like another world than from the
Okay.
experiments you do in the laboratory.
Right.
Mhm.
Okay. So like, what's your plan with like for the future? Like, what do you like to tend to do with your project? Do you have plans with it to expand it and grow in Germany and make it, expand in other parts of EU potentially?
Yeah, so something I did on campus that actually drove a lot of purpose on me as a person living here, as an expat living here in Germany. I was doing some volunteer work with international office to do workshops. So I've been doing free workshops in universities. I also did one in Zurich University, in Umbel campus. I did three in Trier University. I did one, and it's just getting the people informed about the impact of the type of coffee they consume because it makes a huge difference when you consume specialty coffee than when you consume the coffees that cost 4 euros in the supermarket. And the difference is in the environmental impact in the source, namely Colombia.
Okay.
That is the case that I know.
Okay.
Because when you produce coffee that is from monoculture farms,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
um, the environmental impact is very large. But when you want to consume coffee that is produced in as a specialty coffee, you have to have biodiversity. You have to
Yep.
have, another type of plants, another type of flowers. You need the
Yep.
trees. You need shadow as well. It's very important for the
Yep.
coffee that we produce in Colombia, for example. So it's explaining this to people and just getting the people more informed
Mm-hmm.
about the
Impacts. Yeah.
impacts
Yeah.
of our consuming decisions.
Yeah.
So this contribution to academia has been
Okay.
like a big part of my happy life here as an expat.
Okay.
And then why not one day I can go back to the laboratory if I can get a
Hands on.
cooperation with a
Yeah.
university or something. That's
I
it's like my hobby. It's like yeah, for me this topic is like I wake up every
like you
day.
said, it's a life project. You already said it in the beginning, so
Yeah,
it's gonna go
exactly.
on forever.
Not that especially as a Colombian living here, it is very fulfilling just to be talking to people about these topics. As a sustainable engineer, is perspective is also very fulfilling to say, hey, we can work on engineering. We also have things to contribute because I feel I just believe that migration is this exercise of not only getting or not only giving, but is a back and forth, right?
Right.
And
Yeah.
that makes a society
Better.
blend
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
and better in
Yeah.
general. Yeah,
Yeah. That's a very nice philosophy you have. That coming from there, and you have the feeling to give back as well. It's very nice.
yeah,
Yeah, I feel that way as well. That's why I started the podcast. I learned all of this, and I'm here. I learned it, and what am I doing it? Making not so good use, and that's why I want to give what I learned and all of
yeah.
this through
Because you also
this.
studied in the area of sustainability, right?
Yeah,
Material flow management.
yeah. I'm at international material flow management. Yeah,
Oh, great. What
yeah.
was your area of research there?
I did a zero emission campus concept where I
Oh,
tried to make a university zero emission in all terms, gaseous, liquid, and solid. So yeah, I
and you
worked
were
on that.
successful because we have the more sustainable university in Europe,
Yeah,
don't we?
I studied in one of the number one in the whole world, so it was the best role model or the best
Yeah,
example to give to other part. Yeah,
yeah.
and it was pretty good. Yeah, they actually implemented a biogas back in my
Oh,
home university. Yeah, yeah, so they're making
oh,
use of our.
really?
Yeah, yeah,
That's a
they
really
used
good impact. Yeah,
Yeah, I writing a paper on my hometown to make use of the organic waste that's coming in the municipal solid waste, and I will
cool.
publish it soon. Yeah, as well. Yeah,
When you have it ready, please forward it to me. I will be happy to share and
sure.
to
Yeah,
read
I
it.
need to do it. Yeah,
Yeah.
I will do it. Yeah, yeah. When you said about coffee with monoculture and all of this,
Uh-huh.
this is why I don't drink tea because tea is a monoculture and it
Ah.
when I studied my bachelor's in environmental sciences, one of our teacher, when we went on a field trips, they took us on a
Yeah,
nature trip, and all we could see was like tea estates. They have the whole mountainside just cut because it needs specific temperature, right amount of
yeah,
lighting, and all the stuff. And they cleared out like large amounts of forest just to grow one crop, and that was tea. And my
yeah.
teacher explained the benefits of coffee, that it needs shade and you can grow different trees along it, and it's a vine, right? Is it a vine? I believe the coffee plant is a vine, I believe, is it? Things,
No, it's a tree
Oh,
itself.
okay. Or a
Hmm.
bush, rather, is it? I believe it
I have
can
here a
be
coffee tree. I can show you.
here in Germany.
I mean, not coffee tree, but a plant. Should I bring it?
Okay. Yeah, if you want, we can. Okay.
So
Wow.
these are coffee. These are so there are two types. There are two types of coffee seeds. Ones are called Arabica, and the other ones are called Robusta. The Arabica coffee beans are the ones that have the potential to produce specialty coffee. And this is like the trees I have here. I always make
Okay.
sure to have a coffee plant here, and I grow them
To
myself.
keep you reminding.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Actually, I grow these ones myself from the specialty, no, from the Coffee Association in Colombia.
Okay.
They say actually something very important to mention when you want to be responsible consuming coffee is that there are some countries that produce coffee beans that have associations. And these associations are really good, like in Vietnam or Peru or Colombia. These associations are really good because this is a commodity, means that is traded in the stock market in New York. So the farmers get pay for the stock market price in dollars. And that is a
Hey, wow.
really good thing in the country.
Okay.
And yeah, in the case of Colombia, Arabica are these ones. But you also have Robusta beans, and the Robusta beans are the ones that are produced, for example, in Brazil, and those are the monocultives thing. And the problem with producing this large scale of anything, call it tomatoes, call it coffee, whatever, is
Any
that you
agriculture, yeah.
exhaust the resources of the soil. So this soil, it will be absolutely useless in 30 years. But when you produce, taking into account the biodiversity, then you just have like a forest, like you are producing sustainably. So yeah,
Is it
these
is
are
it
my babies.
something to do with is it something to do with fair trade thing? This what you just mentioned.
Yeah, certificates are also very important.
Okay.
So in Colombia, I mean, there is a lot of corruption sometimes, but I will say that when, for example, Peru, Vietnam, or Colombia, when you have a certificate like fair trade and so on, they ensure that the water does not have heavy metals or another pollutants. So you also consume like good quality of the things you are consuming. You use a right amount of water, so you are not exhausting the water resources.
Uh-huh. And also the
Also,
employees get paid fair and no child labor and
exactly, they
yeah,
also check.
exploitation. Mm-hmm.
Exactly, they check for child labor, they check for the quality of the humidity of the beans, they check. But in my experience, at least the case of Colombia, because we have a coffee association, you can make sure that all the other certificates are backup for the National Coffee Federation in Colombia. And the farmer role goes something because I have a small investment in Colombia in a farm.
Okay.
I spoke with the engineer that is in charge of that region, and I found super interesting that these associations also, which happen also in Peru, I happened to learn recently,
Okay.
they train the farmers to make it economically sustainable. So coffee beans is a production that is long-term production because since you plant the tree, that's the ones that I show you, until you get the first beans can happen 3 years. And in these 3 years, you have to go there and do maintenance and put cal for the pH levels and so on. And in Colombia, this association, they have engineers and without cost, so the government covers all these costs. They go there
Wow.
and they teach the farmers, hey, this is a long-term production, so you also have to cultivate plantain. You also have to cultivate maize. So you have to make it economically viable.
Okay. So
So
rather than a
they,
monocrop, so it's more like they really promote to have different crops along the way.
yeah, so actually, this field, I call it like in sustainability, we learned that we have the E, the S, the G for environmental, social, and
Yeah,
governance.
social governance. Yeah.
And this type of production involves all of them. So because sustainability, it also makes sense when it is economically viable, right? So this is what happens when you purchase this type of commodities or products from countries that have this type of associations, which is
Okay,
really
good
good.
to know. Yeah, good to
Mm.
know. I didn't know about that, and I that's good to learn as well. And thank you for sharing your plant. That was a
Yeah.
cute little thing. So you grew it from the seed. You grew the whole thing. You didn't get it as a plant, and you grew it from the seed, or what?
Yeah, I got the certified beans from the Coffee Association, from the
Okay,
engineer there. So the government
okay,
also produced this to the farmers. In Colombia, we have Ceni Cafe, that is the largest genetic research center in the world. It's placed
okay.
also in Colombia, and I got the seeds from there, and I started to grow them
Cool.
last year.
Wow,
Yeah,
that's so nice. Wow, crazy.
yeah. Some of them maybe will die, but at least one survive because of the weather.
Why do you say? Oh, because it's closely planted, or why do you say that?
No, because these plants need tropical weather, and here I don't use
So cold.
additional lighting or anything. I just put it on
Okay.
my windows.
Yeah. Okay.
Hmm.
Cool. Thank you for sharing that bit of information and your plant. And yeah, let's go back to your topic then. And what's like we spoke about how you extract it and like okay, now you said the distillation. And what is the yield like? Let's say we have 1 kilogram of this, spent coffee grounds.
Hmm.
What is the amount of oil, the yield that you get from it? Because you mentioned about the yield previously.
Yeah, so from a material composition perspective, it can go up to 18%, but the one that is usually that has been achieved in academia and industry has been 15%. And in the laboratory, we did achieve 15%.
Oh wow, okay.
Yeah.
And it's quite significant. So it's like 15% of that seed, is
Yeah.
that right?
Yeah. And
Okay.
then the leftovers, so the material that is in that it was in the glass together with the solvent, we can kind of did like a close setup, and because the heating source was heating this product up to 400 degrees, we actually also did additional tests to
Okay.
evaluate if this carbon, it was like a black paste. So we
Okay.
got the oil plus the black paste from the spent coffee grounds.
Mm-hmm.
If this black paste was having carbon black properties, or it
Okay.
can be functional for carbon black
Okay.
substitutions. And we did it. So we performed volatile test,
Okay.
water content, volatile water content, and another test that are used
Okay.
in
Okay.
industry, and
Uh-huh.
it did match the properties. So
Okay.
it's a waste. It was not only the main product that was the
Mm-hmm. The
maca oil.
oil.
I call it
Yeah.
the
Mm-hmm.
maca oil.
Maca oil. Okay.
Yeah, but it was the waste of that process can also be
Be
used.
utilized. Okay.
Yeah.
And for now, you're just using it as carbon black or like activated carbon at the moment.
No, for activated carbon, you have to inject another element into the
Okay.
process. I didn't do
Okay.
that.
Okay.
But carbon black as a painting for
Mm-hmm.
painting,
As
uh,
ink, I believe, is it?
yeah,
Yeah, just
hmm,
as ink. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Okay. But can this process not be done any other way that we can make use of the polymers to make use of cups or something else along the way?
Yes, if you take the step further
Mm-hmm.
than the distillation, then you can produce biofuels,
Plastics. Oh,
and then you
fuels.
can
Okay.
produce bioplastics.
Oh, okay. So
Yeah.
you have like a degree of how many distillation process you can do from lower
Yeah.
temperature to higher temperature. Am I
But
right?
depending of what you want to do, you have to adjust the parameters. Because, for example, in the pyrolysis plant, if you want to get a really good oil quality and a good oil yield, then you have to work with the temperature and the
Okay.
time of the process.
Okay.
But if your main goal is to produce carbon black, a good carbon black that can be used in industry, then the parameters are different. So
Okay.
this is, from the beginning, you have to know the uses, like for what you want to use your products, and then
Okay.
you
Okay.
adjust the parameters.
Okay. So it can be very depending on. Okay. what you want to
Yeah.
do. Okay.
Yeah.
Because when I was reading a scientific paper about the
Mm-hmm.
potential uses of the various biocompounds that are in
Huh?
coffee beans, one is the oil, and the second is we can use the polysaccharides, so the carbohydrates part, as like you can make also pellets for burning in Germany to make use of like a heating unit, to
Yeah.
burn in a boiler or something and make products. I was like, okay, then your product, so it just completely burns it out and makes it as carbon black. That's the only
Yeah.
way, or?
No, I explored. So I explored the carbon black, activated carbon, the oil, and then I also did with the thermo. On campus they have a laboratory for thermodynamics
Okay.
and uh, thermal properties for materials. I did a project there with another professor, which was also evaluated on my thesis,
Okay.
to produce insulation panels.
Ooh,
So I
okay.
did mix. I did mix the carbon black from the distillation process. I mix coffee grounds dried, and I use an element to neutralize, because if you use the spent coffee grounds just as they are, they with the time they produce moist
Mold. Oh, okay.
and malt,
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, so you cannot use
Oh,
them. So
okay.
I nivelated the material,
Okay.
and then I use clay.
Okay.
Yeah, and you can also it has very good properties because for insulation,
Mm-hmm.
because of the porosity of the material. And
Mm.
then when you combine it with carbon black, you get higher, you get better properties compared with another bio insulators
Oh, okay.
properties.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so we did also that on campus.
Crazy.
Uh,
Wow. You did a lot of
yeah,
cool stuff with it. Wow.
it was so
Nice.
fun, I have to say, and that's why I'm
Really?
telling. Yeah,
Wow.
I was very surprised. All the professors were very open, and they were very willing to help me, and they guided me. So they were at the same time like my mentors
Yeah, yeah.
for 3 years there.
Wow, that is so nice.
Yeah,
Wow.
I can send you the
Crazy.
pictures of the test. So yeah, I explored maybe two, three. I explored 4 products
Okay.
from in
The
the
coffee
laboratory. Yeah,
with those spent coffee grounds.
yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. What is the potential of this market? Just your oil alone, like what does the whole market cap worth?
Yeah, so from upcycling, so you have, depending of the applications in what you want to use your product, then you evaluate the market. That's something that on a volunteer basis, I've been working with TUM University here in Munich with the TUM mentors for the startup office. They have an amazing ecosystem here,
Okay.
and you can access just for free if you are curious. If anyone is curious about anything, they help you with
Okay.
this type of
No
things.
way, really?
Yeah, yeah.
You don't need to be a student.
No, the access to get information about further education and all the startup ecosystem here in Bayern is from other world. I never have seen something like this, not even in San
Really?
Francisco, the US. Yeah, you can access to everything. You have the mentors, you have the contacts, they have pitch competitions. If you are looking for a job, they have match events, for example, if you want to look for a job, if you want to find a co-founder, if you need help with finances, if you want to cooperate with your company. So I work as a sustainable consultant. So if my company, for example, wants to cooperate with the startup ecosystem in, I don't know, defense topics, circular economy
Mm-hmm.
topics, and so on, they are also very open to all these things. So
Really?
yeah, it's amazing.
Wow.
So the
Okay.
last month, I was just curious, and I was attending, since I'm new in the city, to some of the events, and I learned that depending of the application you want to, which you want to use XY product, you analyze the market. So for oils, maca oil is a premium oil that is used in cosmetics. So there are two type of markets: all the oils that can be used in cosmetics, and then you have a very large share,
Okay.
or you can have a market application for specialty oils that are the ones that
Yeah,
compete with argan or jojoa, for example.
okay.
These niche markets are smaller, of course, than
Mm-hmm.
the global ones, but the price per liter of a product like maca oil is also way larger, because you
Okay.
are not selling bulk products. You are selling specific properties. For example, Nivea, I saw Nivea once, they
Mm-hmm.
use oil from the company in Denmark.
Okay.
So if a normal cream, for example, uses 7% of oils in total,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
they will use 2% of the coffee oil on them. But then per liter, this oil is also is larger, right? Because of
Okay.
the
Yep.
type of properties that it has. Yeah. The problem with them talking about market shares and in upscaling this type of research ideas and so on in cosmetics and food industry, I learned recently
Yeah. Food industry. Mm-hmm.
yeah, because yeah, for example, is the okay, because of the regulatory ecosystem, which
Mm-hmm.
we know is very complex, especially here in Germany.
Carbon.
The customer acquisition cycles are very long. So with this type of upcycle products, the purchase of your product can take so long because you have to do so many tests to comply with the regulations that sometimes even you get into this infinite testing
Loops.
testing
Okay.
loop.
Mm.
So that's one of the so I think all companies, startups and large companies that are using upcycling products and incorporating them in the processes, one of the main thing to do is to normalize the feedstock. So you have to have
What stock? Feedstock.
the feedstock.
Oh. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay.
So for example, what I did on campus is that I identified uh, the coffee machines where they were buying the same brand all the times with the portions department.
Okay.
So I could get similar qualities because then when you, for example, companies that are upcycling orange peels or another type of waste materials, when the sources are very different, then you get
Contamination.
contamination, and then the product is not normalized. So I think in general, circular economy market
Mm-hmm.
and is something that it needs more support. It
From the
needs,
government, you mean, or
yeah,
in terms of policies?
for the government, for research, and
Yeah.
it needs more funding for research because these are the type of things that we do in the laboratory when we do our bachelor, master's, PhD, and so on. Because we do know now that we can use them, right? We know that we can upcycling. We do know that oil can be extracted, plastic can be extracted. Like we know that the processes work, that the technology works.
Possibility. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And that's why I call my project TRL3, Technology Readiness Level 3. It's like when you realize like, okay, I have an idea, I can do that, I prove it, I got a product.
Right.
And then when you want to get to TRL4 to 9
Yeah. 9.
or
Yeah.
10 is when you have to ensure that you can scale up, right? That you can ensure the sourcing of these products, that you can select SY. Yeah, so here in
Yeah.
Munich, the specialty coffee shops are like a big thing, of course, like in any large city. Yeah, I like to go and spend some time there in these shops, and I ask the people like, what do you do with the waste?
Oh, okay.
How are you treating? Are you mixing it? Like, is it being
So
recycled?
you did a field survey.
Yeah, I really like
Oh,
this
wow.
project,
Okay.
and I always go there and I ask them like from where do they source the beans, which type of certificates do they have for sourcing. So
Really
kind of doing my societal job.
crazy. So,
Yeah.
so how do these specialty coffee shops work then? Like, do they have special links with corporations to bring the right type of coffee, or don't they just go to a special, like what do you call them, distributors that sell coffee and stuff and just buy whatever, right? Or how do they do?
So here in Germany, that is regulated. If you are selling specialty coffee, it has to have certain characteristics, and you cannot just say specialty coffee just because. No, you have to ensure that these beans have a size, it has certain level of humidity, it has certain traceability. So mostly here in Munich, they outsource from Colombia, Vietnam, and Peru, and they use certificates. So yeah, and they have contacts with farmers there. That's something also that I find very interesting, that in the market there are many direct contacts.
Okay.
So with farmers, which is
Really?
really good because that
Oh,
means that the farmers are the ones keeping the money, right?
that's nice. Wow.
Mhm. Not
So
all of
that's
them, of
very,
course, but it's very common that they have contact directly with the farmers.
so that's in Germany. That's how they do it. That's very nice to hear. Wow, crazy.
So I do that. That has been my experience in Copenhagen, in Frankfurt,
Okay.
and in Munich.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah.
Crazy. I didn't know how this works. Okay, that's good. So then let's say if we want to scale up the project and
Mm-hmm.
cities in different levels. So we have universities, we have offices. We know that all the corporate offices have like a lot of coffee machines
Yeah.
to keep their employees going. Let's say if we want to not just have coffee shops and like let's say we want to expand it to universities, offices, and I don't know whatever. Like we know there's so many other places where coffee is drunk. Like how would that work then? Like if you want to expand your supply chain of raw materials, how would that work?
Yeah. I had a crazy dream 1 year ago.
Okay, what was
So I even did some drawings on ChatGTP one day that I was bored. I can send it to you later.
okay, okay,
So I really dream with a building, having a
okay,
building that has
okay.
in the first floor a coffee shop, sourced 100% from Colombia, the farms that are around the area where I grew up, specialty beans where I will send directly money to the farmers.
Oh, wow.
And then like to create in this building like a full upcycling process. So
Oh, crazy.
in the second floor, I want to have the roastery because on campus when we were, I studied for energy upcycling also. So
Okay.
these industrial parks concepts we did
Okay,
evaluated
the
through
heat
our
system.
studies, like
Mm-hmm.
heat systems. When you have
Okay,
a whole production and so on in a city or in the same building
right.
or close to another industry, you can use the heat for your own production,
Yeah,
and that saves a lot of energy, meaning
yeah,
also a lot of CO2 emissions.
yeah.
So in the second floor, I
And
want to,
economics.
and economics, yeah. In the
Yeah,
second floor, I want to have like a roastery. Then in the third
okay,
floor, I want to have the distillery.
okay.
And then in the last floor, I want to have like a, because I really like to do workshops. I've been there, as I mentioned before, I like to do this exercise with academia and universities. So in the fourth floor, I would like to have like a training center. So people that is
Ooh,
curious about it can go and learn and see a coffee plant and see how a full
crazy.
upcycling process work. Yeah, so if you want to scale up this type of projects, I have to say is very capital intensive because you need, okay, first you need like an specialist in chemistry who works with the formulations. You need to buy the machinery. When you do, this is also economics of a scale. These projects work with economics of a scale. So for in order to be profitable, you have to ensure minimum production per month or a year. So with very little production, you are not sustainable. You cannot ensure like
Economically
profits.
feasible. Yeah.
It's
Mm-hmm.
not economically feasible.
Yeah.
And in order to increase production, you also need, for example, ventilation systems. You need the machinery. As I mentioned before, it's not the same to practice chemistry in the laboratory than practicing chemistry in
Okay.
the like in a
Yeah, the
large
know-hows.
scale.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So these processes are capital intensive, but then the return on investments are also very sustainable because you have the source is local. So
Mm-hmm.
if a war happens or if something happened, you are not
Yeah.
exposed to
You're
external value chains.
what do you call that? You are when you have no threats from outside, so you're like secure. What is the word for it?
Risk, value chain risk
Yeah, you're like resilient for whatever that happens, so you're
is
like
that,
protected.
yeah,
Yeah.
all of these
Okay.
upcycling business models are very resilient. Yeah.
Resilient.
So
Yeah.
there is a huge risk about the
Mm-hmm.
quality of the feedstock. This is something
Yeah.
that still needs some improvement. But
Yeah.
once you solve this, which it has been proven that it can be
Mm-hmm.
possible, then you have a very resilient business model. That
Business model.
is important, the sustainability part, but it is also important to say that these products have to meet the regulation. It has to comply with the regulation, and they have to meet the technical requirements from companies. So being upcycled, that does not mean less qualities, because at the
Right.
end, either the common ones with upcycling elements, they have to fulfill exactly the same characteristics, the same parameters, the same. So yeah, for economic for scale is the capital intensive thing. The investment Also
It's high.
because
Hmm.
investors are looking always to medium long-term return on
Hmm.
investment. When you go
Right.
and see venture capital, for example,
Yeah.
that are the ones that support
Yeah.
that make these projects possible, because
Right.
as I said, they are very
They
capital.
invest. Yeah. Give
Yeah,
you. Hmm. Okay.
yeah. So yeah, I will say is that, and then the market as acceptance, right? So for
So there is.
companies, yeah, like Nivea or all of these companies that
Hmm.
purchase this type of products, uh, yeah, I think for them it's also a learning process, right? To understand
Yeah.
that not,
Something new. Yeah.
yeah, not
Hmm.
because it's upcycle it has less qualities, or not because
Yeah.
it's upcycled it wouldn't meet the standards of what they're used to. So from a customer perspective, it's also a learning process to go to, but I think the economy is moving towards,
Right.
yeah.
But when you mentioned that we have to qualify with a lot of like you said tests that you need to do on the products, like what do you need to do and prove that the product meets the standards of whatever they want? What are them?
For example, for maca oil,
Yeah.
they have to have thresholds for the amount of solvent that is in the material, because you only can extract it with solvent. So if it's too much, then it cannot go to market.
Right.
They have to have like contaminants tests also. They need to have humidity and water
Mm.
levels, because
In the oil.
yeah,
Oh, okay.
yeah,
Mm.
and so it's all these tests are also playing with the production, right? So I have seen some pictures online from my research that companies have to, once they extract the oil, they have to uh, put the oil in these containers that have
Okay.
nitrogen, and then the antioxidant level, for example, has to be
Oh, okay.
controlled.
Mm.
Yeah, there are many tests that needs to be done. Also, depending of to which company are you selling to. So, are you selling for a
Mm.
cream, for a
Food.
shampoo,
Okay.
for exfoliant?
Right.
Are you going beyond? Are you going to pharmaceuticals? So there are different tests,
Okay.
and then all of these characteristics has to be fixed in the laboratory, which also makes this project very capital intensive at
Yeah.
the beginning.
More. Mm.
Hmm.
Then you really have to boil down to who you want to deliver the products to in the beginning of when you decide to do the oil extraction. So you have the end product that
Hmm.
is going specifically to some one unit or two unit who you want to
Yeah.
give out to. Oh, okay. Oh,
So, like
wow.
in my studies with Professor Camelot in the university,
Yeah.
we work with business models, but only on my research project, I really understood like everything around a business model,
Okay.
and why it is so important. Because when you have a business or a company, for example, the company in which I work as a Susan Consulting, opening market here in Germany and in Europe, you really have to understand what is your customer segmentation, what is your value proposition. So which problem are you really solving to customers, and how are you going to do it? You have to figure out your
Did you make
marketing.
the business model Canva? Did you do it?
Exactly, yeah.
Okay.
I think when you see it the first time, like,
Okay.
yeah, key partners, key activities, blah,
Yeah.
it
Revenue
sounds,
streams and yeah.
revenue streams.
Yeah.
That sounds easy. Like that you see it and it's like, oh, of course I can do it.
Yeah.
But I have been in contact with many of the startups that have been doing these
Okay.
pitch competitions here in Munich. And
Okay.
when I told to them, if you don't really understand what you are putting there, and you are going too broad, or you are putting too much on your project, you fail,
Hmm.
because you don't
Yeah.
have the resources to it. So you really have to focus. So you really have to focus in one customer, one problem at the time. Because, for example, with maca oil in the project that I studied,
Uh-huh.
if I say the maca oil, it can be used, for example, the upcycling of coffee grounds can be used in 10 industries. And
Okay.
imagine if I produce for 10 industries as a startup, for example, and for each test, for each customer, I have to do rectification of the parameters in the laboratory. I will I will fail 100%. My project is gonna fail 100%. But if I focus only on cosmetics, and I focus only on the main regulatory pressure that my customers have, and I understand one or two customer problems, that's an investment that can be done for my project and then have results. Yeah.
Have like the first step into the upcycling business, and then as you grow, you can
Scale up,
develop into
exactly.
scale
Yeah.
it up. Okay,
But you have to solve
yes,
one problem at the time.
at
So
a
you
time. Yeah,
really have to focus, because the focus comes also with the financial resources that you have to
right.
put on there and the time, right?
Yeah, and allocation of the right people and the right money and
Mm-hmm.
everything. Yeah, yeah, that's good to know. Yeah, for somebody
Yeah.
who's listening who might, take something from today's conversation. You need to keep in mind the business model Canva really,
Yeah.
and do one step at a time and have big
Yeah.
dreams, but go in one path first and then diversify. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's good that you mentioned that, because when I was thinking and I was looking at making products from this and then this, and then now you
Mhm.
bring in the testing
Yeah.
part, and I was like, oh yeah, right, we need to remember that
Yeah.
part.
And that applies
Yeah.
for production. So if you want to have a company, a startup, but that also apply, for example, if like me, I'm working as a sustainable consultant and we are opening market in several countries. So if I start with sustainable reporting, opening market with many
Mhm.
industries in many countries, I am not
Mhm.
gonna fill my KPIs, right? I am
Yeah.
not gonna bring the results that the management probably wants to see. I am not
Right.
gonna really understand what the customers in this industry wants, because I will be being too broad, and then instead of having 15 regulation, I will have hundreds of regulation. So I think, apply from as an employee, but also as
Mhm.
a startup, as a founder, you really have to focus and solve one problem at a time. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, good point to mention the thing that people follow. Okay, now we've spoken about this. That was very interesting. What's your goal with your, like, how big do you want to grow with this, and what's the result you want to see from your research in the world that we live in, apart from, like you mentioned, to bring a positive image of,
Mhm.
Colombia, sorry. But like, what is the other bigger picture that you are seeing in your head with this project and want to share it to us?
Yeah, so yeah, as you mentioned, the first thing that really gives me purpose and at a personal level as being
Uh-huh.
expat here in Germany is just to contribute a little bit in educating people, educating companies in what is possible and what is maybe good and what is not so good, and also promote a little bit the coffee economy in my
Mm-hmm.
country and the
Yeah.
relationships between Colombia and Germany within this
Yeah.
topic. Then I want to keep being part of the academic research here in Europe within this topic, especially with coffee in Arabica beans, so with the specialty sector. So all this stakeholder engagement with the specialty coffee shops, with the universities, with the people in my work, and so on. That's something that it brings a lot of fulfillment to
Joy.
me.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's fun. It's just like
Yeah.
it's very fun to do, and I feel that it has an impact as well.
Right.
So it's not just fun, but it has an impact. And then I would love to show the PhD Asma, with who I
Mm.
started this project on campus. She probably will move
Okay.
to Germany.
Okay.
Sorry, she's already in Germany. She will move to Munich.
Okay.
And as a hobby or parallel side
Mm-hmm.
of my job, I would love to go back to the laboratory. I have a very
Do.
deep connection with chemistry and lab
Okay.
work and so on. I would love to go back there. I actually have a contact with Fraunhofer Institute. Fraunhofer Institute have a very large research on this topic. They have an INCA
Okay.
project, it's called INCA
Inca.
project, and they
Okay.
are evaluating from an academic perspective the uses of upcycling coffee grounds. They are working with bioplastics mostly, so they are
Okay.
just focused, and they already have some industry cooperations and so on. So I would love to be sitting in those
In
tables of
this.
conversations. I would love to have
Oh
my
wow.
contribution as a person who grew up around coffee plantations
Yeah.
and around all this industry, and just be part of those tables. I would love to also. So this is something that I have already done. I work
Mm-hmm.
in sustainable reporting, and one of my favorite areas in my job is the topic of decarbonization and circular economy. So I would love to somehow merge my professional life with my passion. Like
Okay.
I see myself doing this for 20, 30 years.
So,
Yeah.
wow, that's nice. Wow. Crazy. So you believe this is your purpose in life, that you have to bring, some value to your local community through what life has given you to make you live in Germany and your
Yeah.
education and everything. Okay,
Yeah.
wow,
And
that's
my
very.
professional life, for example, in the company where I worked before in
Mm-hmm,
Saarbrücken, also in the topic of sustainable reporting, I
mm-hmm.
mentioned this project to a couple of people,
Okay.
and I really got their attention.
Wow.
Yeah, even one time we discussed about doing a testing course or whatever.
Okay. Oh, really?
Hopefully, yeah,
Wow. Okay.
hopefully that will happen again with the
The
company.
Germans like to do this, the thumb thing, like this. I don't know what it's called,
I don't know.
for best luck, like, hey, I hope it works or
Ah,
happens.
okay, good to know.
Yeah, you have to like do your thumb like so, and then like you say,
I didn't
like,
know
yeah,
integration.
they do that. Yeah, they say best of luck. Yeah.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah, so and that's actually part of, because I have named my project and I have even
Mm-hmm.
worked on a logo and so on, and that is the connecting part of the name
Yeah.
of my company, like sharing
So the marker
knowledge.
connecting. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and why
Crazy.
not maybe in the future help a company to monetize this idea, or
Yeah, of
yeah,
course. Yeah.
being sitting
Yeah.
in those conversation tables. That's, I think,
To make a change on a big
yeah,
scale. Yeah.
real
That's
impact. Yeah.
yeah. Positive impact. I think when I spoke to you for the first time, you mentioned you have an engineering background, and then you came to Umbel campus and you study SPT. Is that right? Like, like, what was the decision? Like, what was the moment of decision when you did, your engineering? What engineering did you do?
Mechanical engineering.
Okay, and then like, what made you want to like apply mechanical engineering in sustainable technology? Like, what was the moment? Like, what were you thinking then?
Well, okay, first, when I was living in Colombia, I always knew that I wanted to get to know another cultures. I wanted to learn a third language. I wanted to explore the world, you know. I really wanted to expand my mind. I think when you travel and you live somewhere else, you get rid of biases, you understand another cultures, religions, ways of thinking, and that is what it makes being alive so special,
Yeah,
right?
experience. Yeah.
Yeah, get
Mm-hmm.
that experience. So yeah, after I moved, I studied mechanical engineer there. I work
Mm-hmm.
as in mechanical drawing in Colombia.
Okay.
And then when I saw this program in Umbel campus, Trier University, I just fell in love because it was a dual program. So we have the business side and the engineering side. So it really allowed me to get to know the engineering, how German engineers think, how German engineers do things, apply
Yeah.
things, like
Mm-hmm.
scientific methods, like all these type of things that I mean, I knew from a Colombian perspective, but it was a large difference to know it from the German perspective.
Coming here, right? Yeah.
Coming here, yeah. For
Yeah.
example, all of these logistics systems from which Germany is very popular, the manufacturing
Oh, yeah.
industry, all of those things.
DHL and all this
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah,
Yeah. Everything.
yeah.
Yeah.
And then the business side of my studies, it really bring more context for what I knew before in engineering, because these type of things that we have discussed along the podcast, you have to know about economic of scales. You have to know that not everything that is optimal should be as optimal, right?
Mm-hmm.
Not
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
everything that can be optimized should be optimized. So,
Yeah.
and all of these bring also like economic perspective. I think it's important as a professional also to know, even if you are working for a company, for example. I've been doing CO2 emissions and giving technical input for CO2 emissions calculations and the way how you do it. So it's always an optimal way to do things and a perfect way to do things, but it also need to have economic sense. Yeah. Or when you are belong to a research center, you are in academia. Yeah, there are many things that can be done, but then one have to ask, like,
The right
should that
question.
be
Oh,
done?
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Mm-hmm.
all these, the business side, so merging the business side with the engineering side was, I just fell in love of the
That's
program. Yeah.
okay. Yeah, I can imagine. I have.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's like the same way I came to Germany.
Yeah, you
Uh,
had the same experience.
yeah, it was a whole different thing. I chose to do masters in business,
Yeah.
MBA in green business back in India,
Oh, okay.
I really wanted to study, sustainable management. And
Huh?
then I looked around in India and I found a university, and they were, what do you call, like they had a MOU, memorandum of understanding, with this university, and
Okay.
they offered the course. And they said, yeah, I was the only one who chose a course, and that was the first year of
Ah,
them providing the course.
yeah.
I was like, perfect. And I looked at IMAT course, what they were teaching. I was like, wow, okay, that is so cool. And then I was like, yeah, I
What
just
were the
pushed it.
difference you will say of doing the master that you did in India compared with the one you did in Germany? Like, what are the main differences that, professionally speaking, so what you learned there are?
Yeah. Well, MBA is more business oriented.
Mm-hmm.
You learn like statistics and behavioral, organizational behavior and like microeconomics and
Ah,
all of this
yeah,
I learned. And when I came to Germany to do my studies, and it was semester exchange, I did
yeah,
my second year. Part of my MBA second year was in Germany, but it
yeah.
ended up being me doing dual masters. And
Okay.
it was completely technical. It was so different from an MBA because this was an MSc, Masters of Science course.
Ah, that's a Master of Science course. Yeah.
So it was so, different. But I had a bachelor's in science, in environmental sciences, so I
So
could,
that helped. Yeah.
yeah, it was a lot easier for me. And
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I was, glad that I did my first year of MBA in India,
Mm-hmm.
because that gave me all the knowledge of business, like entrepreneurial mindset, and what to do, and microeconomics. And then
Yeah.
I come here, I learned all the technical stuff and how to be a perfectionist, and
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah, how to, that. So yeah, it really was very useful because it expanded my horizon of the way of thinking and what was
Exactly.
happening, and it was really nice. And here I am.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
that
think
was
from a
my
from a
story.
mental perspective, and also this type of things, finding your purpose and being happy in life, right? Like knowing what
Yep.
I think this, yeah, having these different perspectives, it really shape one's
This
future. Like,
reality, yeah, as well, yeah.
yeah,
How you experience reality. For me, it really changed because I saw it in a whole different perspective before
mm,
I came to Germany, and then
yeah,
saw the lectures and how people behaved and all the
yeah,
interesting projects that were happening. I was like, wow, there is so much more
yeah,
to experience and learn. And
and learn. Yeah, it's like a
yeah,
continuous learning process.
yeah,
That's super
yeah.
interesting. Yeah,
Yeah, and interesting people on campus from different parts of the world that I
yeah.
spoke with, to understand different cultures. I went to Africa, two African countries, for
And you
an
were in the
international
program that got to Africa. How it's called? The
TU traveling university.
yeah,
Yeah, I went to Ghana and Morocco. Sadly, I was gonna go to Ivory Coast, but I had a
yeah.
problem with visa, and then I
Oh,
couldn't go. But it was a whole different perspective of different cultures and experiencing them firsthand. Yeah, yeah, that's, yeah, very interesting. And like especially living on campus was a whole different thing. It's like, so you're in your own bubble. I don't want to say it's a negative thing,
yeah,
but you really experience yourself and away from interconnected world of people with busy lifestyles. It was
yeah,
so different. That had an impact on me as well. So seeing
yeah.
things way differently. Yeah.
For
Sorry, you
me,
were
for
gonna.
me
Yeah.
too. Like, because I know we were on campus six from 63 nationalities, including
Okay.
Germany. And
Wow.
I think this back and forth. For example, we have all of these international dinners. Uh, like, yeah, learning the differences in values and in culture from different countries. It really, for example, when you are in a corporate position as well, when people reach management positions, that's super important because it really helps you working with your
With.
biases.
Yep.
For example, even from my own people, I may have the perception that, I don't know, Latinos, we are late, for example.
Yeah, the cliches, you mean? Yeah.
Things like that, or
Yeah.
the
Uh-huh.
different biases that one can have against XY country.
Yeah.
Studying and being in academia with international people, it really, really help with the bias perception that ones can have against others, or even with Germans, for example, that they
Yep.
thought like, African people is like
Punctual.
this,
Ah, okay.
Latinos are like that, or whatever it is. But once they get to know you, but you also study engineering, you can also do these things, you can also be punctual, you can also get things done. I
Yeah.
think this international, and I also see this here, for example, in Munich. So many people that is so good in what they do, and they are like very proactive, and they are really good at whatever they do, like sustainable
Ambitious.
consultant,
Yeah.
decarbonization, insurance, a startup, whatever. And because the city is so international,
Yeah.
that for example, personally, I have never feel here that I've been judged because of my nationality. I always have been judged because of what I can do and which contributions I can make. But I do know that that is not the case for all expats here in Germany. So
I
it's
understand. Yeah. Mm.
so, but just to understand that that can happen, and that that's something that can be worked on,
Yeah.
even on a personal level. Like
Yeah,
you
it's a
have to work on your
self-development
biases.
space.
Hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a very important
Yeah.
point. Yeah. I believe that as well. It could people associate intelligence with certain races, but yeah, you really see
I
that
mean, it
intelligence is
happens.
not that, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. Intelligence doesn't choose by race or color or
Yeah.
whatever. It just happens, you know? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a very good point. The multicultural experience is very nice. Yeah, I wouldn't have experienced that back home in India, you know, it's like, no.
No, me neither. In Colombia, I will have stayed
Oh,
there.
really? Oh, okay.
I wouldn't have experienced this. No.
Yeah, I think we are in some ways privileged to, you know, be able to come to Germany and experience. I don't know how yours was, but my personal case, you know, I'm happy that
It
I
feels
was
like a
be.
privilege. Yeah. I
Yeah,
mean, being able to expand your brain and the things that your brain can do and the ways how you can think, I think it's definitely a privilege. Yeah.
yeah, experience it. Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah. Well, that was a nice bit to add in the podcast, a human touch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One of the success factors that bring these research topics um, to have a positive results, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is to communicate with companies that can contribute to these projects to scale up.
Mm-hmm.
So for companies that are in the cosmetics industries that work with premium oils or upcycle oils,
Oils.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I think in the due diligence processes that they have, it will be very interesting to have open channels
Mm-hmm.
for research and startups that can contribute in terms of, okay, which test do you want, which test do you need, what are the parameters needed to really bring the concept of circular economy to be a success factor
To
in
help
Europe.
okay,
Yeah,
okay.
to industry choose to move forward and then have larger conversation tables by drinking a cup of coffee and then
Yeah,
figure out what you can do
yeah.
afterwards. The academia, for example, students from masters and PhDs and so on,
Mm-hmm.
they are very innovative. I believe they're very
Okay.
open to communicate, but we really need these management people that have purchasing power and decision powers in companies to get more closer to innovation ecosystems in each and every
Okay.
city.
Okay.
So maybe for cosmetics companies,
Mm-hmm.
so be more open to have like open channels on their websites or on their social media, so this type of project can really push the
Okay.
technology up because it's also a technology
But
development issue.
yeah,
Yeah. Hmm.
and also product that you're producing as well. So you, from that point, what I could understand is like it's hard to reach out to cosmetics, like to sell your products and have like a collaboration as well, because the
Yeah,
testing parts, you need somebody to help you, or like for all the startups, let's say, to help with all the rules and regulations that you need to pass to start your
exactly.
or put your product in the market. Is that right?
Exactly. So that's the validation phase.
Mm-hmm.
So all these upcycle materials and so on, they need to be economically feasible, and they need to go through a validation phase that goes beyond research, and that comes with the technology readiness level. So
Mm-hmm.
it will be very interesting. I will be very up to design, for example, these questionnaires, forms, to maybe contribute from a sustainable perspective. What is the impact of using upcycling products and raw
Mm-hmm.
materials that are local in
Yep.
cities from waste streams?
Mm-hmm.
And get the companies that have really the power to contribute and make change and buy this type of materials, because at the end of the day, if everything sits on research, then nothing happens.
Yeah.
And then that
Yeah.
you really don't
It's
build impact. But the companies that can really make this to create impact is the companies that buy this type of material,
products. Yeah.
and maybe
Mm-hmm.
having innovation channel on the website, maybe
Mm.
having a formula that they actually reply to, maybe being more open to support startup ecosystems. Or I also got to know here in Munich, for example, BMW, they have a
Mm-hmm.
foundation.
Okay.
And even in large companies, in established companies, when they want to try a new product, the
Mm-hmm.
same exercise that you do as an startup, they also do it in big organizations.
Mm.
And here in Munich, they have all of these startup ecosystem
Okay.
centers. They have, for example, BMW or Bosch, they come to these innovation hubs and they tell these organizations, hey, we have this idea, I need you to validate it, and then I apply that into my company. So
Okay.
these type of channels, for example, in the cosmetics, I have seen manufacturing being more open to these channels, to innovations
Okay.
ideas like the one I developed on my thesis.
Right.
But cosmetics is a little bit closed.
Different. Okay.
Yeah, so it will be interesting just to, yeah, just to know how we can get closer to them, or what an idea in a research center like Fraunhofer Institute or my thesis, what we need to do and have in order to even engage in a conversation with
Expand
them.
them to them. Yeah. I mean,
Yeah,
isn't it already a great point that your product is like environmentally friendly by reducing its carbon, footprint?
I do believe that
That's not
sustainability
big enough.
is
Yeah.
not big enough, but is not enough. It's not enough to be sustainable, because what is important is that if your material fill the parameters that the industry needs. So it's the opportunity to show the companies that your product can meet the same standards as the traditional ones that they
Mm.
use, that
Oh,
are
yeah.
more carbon intensive.
Right.
So being less carbon intensive, because for example these processes are also very energy intensive, so
Right.
they have a lot of emissions as well, but not as much as when you have to import them from
Transported
Brazil
from, yeah.
or from Morocco or from
Right.
another sources. So I think being sustainable, it will be part of every organization,
Mm-hmm.
because at the end of the day it has to be with price, quality, and resilience.
Right.
But it's more the opportunity to innovators to prove that we can also fulfill the same things that were
That
beneficial
whatever.
to companies in the business as usual scenario, but now with less emissions.
Right.
Yeah,
And also trading off environmental impacts like methane emission rather than in a, landfill.
exactly.
You're making use
Yeah,
of it for better off.
yeah. Something
I
very.
also,
Sorry.
go ahead. Yeah.
Now that European Union have this new sustainable regulation that is in the one I work, and in the first
Okay.
chapter they mentioned that the nature is also a stakeholder. That is the change that companies have to do. They
That's
also
very
have to
good.
consider nature as a stakeholder. So we don't have infinite resources. We
Yeah.
actually have reached already 6 of the 9 tipping points.
Yeah.
I've been traveling back and forth for the last 8 years to the US.
Mm-hmm.
I have family there, and
Okay.
Colombia, and here. And I can really see how the resources are just, the quality of resources are getting worse and worse and worse. Like water, for example, a huge topic. I went to do this tour to the US, to the national parks, Sequoia National Parks, Yosemite, and so on. They
Really?
have
Wow.
they have fires everywhere. They have
And the
lost.
climate change
It's
stuff. Yeah.
climate change is real, even where the storm says now, but I can really tell. Even if I don't explain, because the numbers, people don't remember that, and for
Mm-hmm.
companies they relate environmental impact with cost.
Yeah.
But it is not like that. It's about being resilient, and if you don't take care about this risk now, in 10
Yeah.
years you don't have a business. You don't have a river in which to transport goods. You
Yeah.
won't have a weather in which you can have people working in your factories, because it's too
Yep.
high and the productivity goes down.
Yep.
So all these things, I think it should be, is not about just sustainability as a premium and plus, is that sustainability has to be part of the organization.
It's a responsibility of everybody, that makes use of the natural resources. Yeah, I mean, climate change is going to start a lot of climate calamities that are going to affect a large number of, like bean production will drop. Like we don't know. Like I think we're kind of like amnesia. Like we don't see what happened in the past. Like some disease could be caused by climate change, and like the grasshoppers that went from Ethiopia to all the way to northern parts of India to eat up all the corn crops and everything. We don't know what climate change can trigger, and yeah, it's a very important point you're bringing in, that people don't see this, but it is a responsibility that every citizen should demand for every big company to do. Yeah, it's sad. Yeah, that's why I do this podcast, because climate change feels personal to me. I see animals, going extinct due to climate change and severe weather events. And my hometown had already seen
you also
a
have
lot
larger impacts in India, I know.
A huge amount, yeah. And people just see the money, but not the other parts, because it's not directly, they don't see it, And
for example, in my work, in what I do, when we work with risk assessments, I will say now that we are talking about cosmetics and this type of upcycled oils, if a company do this due diligence exercise in terms of how resilient is their value chain, how much is costing them the CO2 emissions that they produce, and so on, they really can mitigate also many of the risks that they face directly from their own operations or from their value chain. And these localized raw materials and upcycled materials provide that risk minimization and mitigation that companies like cosmetics may be facing, in terms of not only from resource availability, but also taxes, regulatory pressures. Now we have CSRD, SRS here in Europe, or resilience with the
climate change and whatever. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I don't know how it's gonna go in the future, because the president of America signs, the first thing he does when he came in is like come out of the Paris Agreement. It's like, oh God. What a nice role model,
You will be surprised. For example, China is on board, Latin America is on board, UK is on board. In the UK, they just approved the sustainable reporting. Here in Europe, they have a backlash in the regulation, from which I have to say I'm agree, even as a practitioner, because they were also asking companies too much. The first time that I read that, I was like, how company will do this? Like,
to like expose certain data of them, or what you mean?
In terms of data exposure, so the know-how for companies, for manufacturing companies, and for all type of industries that are in the scope of this report, but also amount of internal resources that they had to put only to prepare a report. And I don't think this is just a reporting exercise. I work in sustainability reporting, but when I work with companies, I don't see this as a reporting obligation. I see this as how to integrate this risk assessment, the new way of thinking in risk assessment, into the entire organization. So how much CO2 emissions are we producing? How much water are we consuming? Is our value chain in an extremely high risk country? We have CBAM, like CO2 tax now enforced in Germany, for example. So it's not just reporting, but it's just a reevaluation of the business model, considering climate change and the climate aspects, because at the end of the day, everything is how much products and services can you really put outside, not only today, but also in 30 years, in 50 years, and in 100 years.
Okay. Wow. Yeah. I mean, that's another topic maybe we should talk about, since you're a client, like sustainability reporting, that's, you must have like a whole broad spectrum of knowledge about various industries, and also the policies that are coming in play. Something I want to learn as well. Like, it's
100%. We can do another podcast from that topic. Yeah.
Yeah, I would like to learn so much about it, because I know like the policies in Europe is excellent at this moment in time. But if you look, Yeah, I would love to. Let's,
Yeah.
find another time and we'll do it.
I also learned, and I'm saying this coming from Colombia, so
Hmm.
emerging economy. You don't say uh, developing country anymore. You say emerging
Oh,
economy. uh,
okay.
so yeah, coming from that is that I work for European companies in the topic
Uh-huh.
of sustainability reporting, strategy, risk assessment, climate risk analysis, etc. And I think Europe is doing a great job. It's very difficult to harmonize everything for everyone. So no, everything makes sense for everyone, and that is the job that someone like practitioner me has to take into account. But Europe cannot do this alone. Like, and also European Union cannot go beyond the law system and the values that are enforced here in Europe.
Yeah.
So Europe cannot go and tell XY country, hey, you have to ensure you don't have child labor. You have to ensure that your water resources are clean. You have to ensure because there is also a boundary gap. And it's also, we cannot go and tell another countries, you have to do the things right.
Yeah.
So I think there is also a global responsibility in our own governments to do the right thing. Not everything, Europe cannot take care of everything.
Yeah. Well, I
Yeah.
know it's horrible because corruption is a huge player in all of this, and that's
You know,
undeniable.
this is a topic for a full podcast, the due diligence law.
Diligence law. Okay, yeah, then I'll write it down.
I have a lot of, I mean, I have so much material that will actually help me also in my new job as well. If you want,
Okay.
we can
Mm-hmm.
make like a series,
Sure.
maybe 5 podcasts or something, and that will be really nice for me as well.
Yeah, let's do that. Let's educate the people and let's inspire some people and make this happen.
Yeah, and we can bring some data like statistics, for example, from International Energy Agency, from, I don't know, child labor scores or climate change for climate risk analysis, for example.
Climate risk. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Uh, Maybe we can
Uh,
contact someone from the insurance companies and then see if someone wants to join the
sure.
podcast.
I
That will
was
be nice.
That would be nice. Actually, my first job that I wanted to get when after I finished was to join an
Yeah.
insurance company as an underwriter.
Yeah, really.
Yeah, because you can really make so many people do the things that you know is right, in terms to get the insurance,
Mm.
money. And yeah, that's the right place to get. Yeah, I mean, I don't know anybody in the insurance at the moment.
I work
Maybe
in
I do.
insurance. Also.
Are you?
I mean, in Colombia, my family is in the insurance business. My
Oh
mom
yeah,
has
your
an
mom.
insurance
Yeah.
company. Yeah, and
Mm,
I work there for Liberty. It's an American company.
okay.
And then I forgot, Previsora, that is a national company
Wow. Okay.
in automotive and oil and gas. What I wanted to explore now in Colombia is, for example, all of these, so risk assessment in terms of CO2 emission reductions within the insurance market. Because, for example, I know that in sustainable reporting, we also have to evaluate economic perspective. So we have to evaluate from with financial KPIs,
Mm-hmm.
risk and opportunities. And risk
Right.
means is if the, for example, if the insurance are getting more expensive because of climate
Yeah.
change.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
If the insurance is telling you, okay, you have a building in India, but we cannot insure it anymore because it's too risky. You are too
Yeah.
exposed to climate change. So you have
Right.
earthquakes or whatever you
Yeah.
have. And this, yeah, this intersection of the impacts of climate change into the financials of companies, especially European and American companies, because they are very exposed to international's value chains.
Right.
That topic
Yeah.
is super interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, I would love to do that. Please, let's try to get that in order and let's talk about that because I met one person
Mm-hmm.
in a job fair. He worked in AXA.
Ah,
He was the head of cybersecurity, transportation, and something
yeah,
else. I had a very wonderful chat with him. He was the one who really showed me the power of insurance company to
yeah.
fight climate change. And he spoke with them, and he really showed me how interconnected everything is to insurance and climate change and money. I was like, wow, mind blown. And then that's the moment I decided, okay, this is, something
For
amazing that
example, we could do a workshop of how that is called in the reporting from a reporting area, anticipated financial implications of climate change. So which
okay,
opportunities that will bring to companies or which risk they will be exposed due to climate change. I work here in Munich with Munich Re. Munich Re
okay,
is a reinsurance company. So insurance companies
okay,
have the insurance of the insurance company, and
okay,
Munich Re is one of the largest. I think it's the largest reinsurance company in
okay,
Germany, 100%. I'm not sure if in
okay.
Europe. I work with them in the topic of climate risk analysis. So they have to
Oh,
do economic values for vulnerability. So how
yeah.
vulnerable are companies on climate
In that
change?
location or whatever. Yeah.
And that's something we could make like a podcast workshop kind.
That's cool. Yeah, because
Yeah.
I work with a startup company as well, and
Yeah.
I'm their climate resilience specialist as well. So, and
Really?
this, yeah, and I'm a contractor, but I'm not
Yeah.
like a full-time employee, and I'm not getting paid. So, whoever's the
Okay.
government officials, I'm not getting paid.
the,
And
the finance and
yeah, I'm not getting paid, really, to keep it straight. Yeah, I'm not getting paid, but that's the whole thing with oil and gas industries. We
ah,
analyze like what is their climate risks,
what is the name?
vulnerability. Aukan, Aukan. I think it's the startup. It just began. I don't think our search engine optimization is not good, I believe, but I can share you the link.
Yeah, if you share me the link, because in the company I started working, we will work on that. So maybe if I need help with something, I will then contact you.
Okay. Yeah, I'm focusing on my podcasting and this and
Yeah,
that all at the same time, but yeah, that's what I want to do, and I
yeah,
want to apply this podcasting as
yeah,
well. But my other thing that I want to do is like rewilding nature or like urban spaces,
yeah.
along with building climate resilient communities with nature-based solutions is something that I want to do along the
Oh,
way.
that's
So that's
super.
why
But on
I'm
that, we
learning.
can talk about the E4, that is the biodiversity chapter.
Yeah,
So, for
let's
example,
do it.
we can do like from many sustainable reports. But I have so many. I have worked with Python in benchmark analysis and so on.
Okay.
Industries. So, the type of industries that I consult, what can they do to contribute to that? So first of all, we can talk about when is this topic relevant for which type of industries, because not every topic is relevant for everyone. There is a lot of greenwashing going on. So for example, in the company I used to work, biodiversity was not a material topic, water was not a material topic, so it makes no sense to work on it if you don't have an impact on it, right? It makes sense that companies create impacts in the things that they are responsible for, because it's the same as a startup, or you have to prioritize. If a company says, okay, we want to be sustainable and do everything at the same time, that's not going to work. It's a waste of resources. But for companies that biodiversity and water are relevant, there are so many regulations around, and there are so many strategies that companies can put in place in order to contribute to urban resilience, or nature-based solutions, which are extremely important when you want to decarbonize, for example, or you want to mitigate the damages that you do. And also, when is reliable to contact XY companies that work in nature-based solutions? Because also there is so much greenwashing that is, I mean, you should know, yeah, what you are working on. Yeah.
Yeah, the greenwashing is another big topic, but it'll provocate a lot of people when we post it, and if it reaches some companies, I know what can come with these sorts of topics,
Yeah.
especially in the social media world, and yeah, but yeah, that's a very interesting topic. We should. I don't know how we're gonna find time to organize and make it, but I think we should prioritize it. I love the topic, and you seem to be passionate about it, and I see the energy in you to talk about it. Yeah, let's plan it then.
Yeah.
Yeah, and maybe let's have a closing.
Mhm.
Like, do you have anybody like inspiring leaders or somebody that you look up to and had a motivation from somebody in your life to do the thing that you're doing?
Of my. Mm,
Like, who was your inspiration for, the way you are, or like certain philosophy that you follow in your life?
eh, Yeah, my family, 100%. So I come from a family full of entrepreneurs, and all women, by the way. My
Really?
grandma had 6 girls, and those 6 girls had 9. My grandma has 9 granddaughters and one
Okay.
grandson.
Wow.
So we are all women, all corporate or entrepreneur. Many of us are
Okay.
mixed between corporate and entrepreneur passion. My
Mm-hmm.
family, definitely my mom was an inspiration in terms of always wanted to learn something new, always wanted to get out of the comfort zone, always wanted to try new things, even if it's hard, for the sake of being a better person and learning something new and contributing something to society that keep us busy and happy. Because I believe that when you are busy and not happy, that doesn't drive purpose in life. But when you are happy, it doesn't matter how much you have to work. So Colombian people is also very hardworking. And yeah, I think I learn. I think this spirit and so on. I have it from my family, my mom, my aunts, my sister,
Well,
and
that's a very nice one.
yeah, and I'm very happy
Well,
to being here, applying it, and yeah,
well, that's very nice. Actually, that's a lot of people need to hear that. Actually, yeah, they settle for little and then want to try something new because they have the
yeah.
fear of dogma and stuff like this. That's nice.
Yeah, but
Nice.
that doesn't mean that it's easy, right? So I have seen my mom has gone through 2 bankruptcies. I have one aunt; she has a very large baby manufacturing clothes
Okay.
company. She went to bankruptcy 3 times. She went to
Oh,
one divorce already. My mom as well. So that's why I think being happy in what you do is extremely important, because when things get hard, only thing that keeps you standing up is that you see a purpose and that you enjoy doing it,
yep.
because that doesn't mean that it's easy. Like I have also here in Germany so many problems with the language, with the bureaucracy. Wow, the amount of bureaucracy here in Germany is other level. Things don't move as fast as they move in Colombia, Colombia is a very digitalized country like the US
Mm,
or Denmark, for
okay.
example, where I live there. Things here
Mm-hmm.
in Germany are very slow. So, yeah, I think when you really feel that what you do has a purpose, then you can be happy, and then you can pursue this happiness, and then you can
Yeah,
just
nothing stops you.
and then
Yeah.
the hard times and the hard things are more manageable, right?
Yep. Yep. Mm-hmm.
So yeah,
Yeah, you put the words in the right order and the right way with the right energy. That's perfect. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, I feel that way. That's nice. That's gonna, yeah, be someone who's listening out there might be hearing those words, and I believe that's gonna hit you hard. Yeah,
yeah.
it hit me hard because this podcast is all about that. I felt a purpose, and I felt that I need to do something bigger than
Good.
myself, and I couldn't lay off in a company doing something like this. I don't want to say that that's not a nice thing, but I felt like I need to do something bigger than that.
Hmm.
And in this era with the social media, I would be a fool if I don't make use of the internet and social media. So
Yeah.
this is my purpose. And what you said hit me hard. The hard times are going to be manageable when you have the right purpose and you see it in your head, in the vision.
Yeah, it's having a vision.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. Cool. That's a nice ending. Do
Great.
you have anything else to say, or is that about it?
Uh,
Do you feel happy about everything, what we spoke and all this?
yeah, yeah, I think everything
Yeah.
was good. I
Okay. Cool. Well,
Okay. Great. Then
thank you, Alejandra, so
happy
much
to
for
this
your,
conversation.
yeah, here likewise. And that was amazing.
It was very
I'm
insightful.
very
Thank you.
sure
Hmm.
it's going to inspire and make some people have a different perspective of seeing the coffee waste in the trash bin.
Yeah.
Yeah.